Like the shadow of a tree is only an apparent vertical image, so too the image of a mirage is only apparently vertical. The image of a mirage is along the x-axis, presenting itself toward the viewer extended over various distances. My argument about mirages from the beginning has been this. What we observe in the distance, whether proximate or remote, whatever is happening at, say, 1 mile is also happening at any distance beyond that. The physics for both are uniform and are the effect of the conditions of the medium. That is, if a miraged image at 1 mile is 100% physically in line of sight but obscured by refraction, a miraged image at 20 miles is 100% physically in line of sight and only not visible because it is obscured by refraction. Nota bene, the truck is 100% visible as it moves into the event. This rise in the grade of the road places it above the refraction, much like a wave on the water breaks the band. As the distance increases, so does the refractive index. We all know and understand that the truck is driving over physical ground into the distance. We also know that the phenomenon is happening in the air above the surface of the road. At this distance, the truck is far enough into the phenomenon that the entire erect and miraged images are visible. As the truck continues into the mirage and distance, both erect and mirage will combine. The simplicity of the mirage event is that the erect physical target is always in your line of sight. Whenever the mirrored image obstructs any part of the physical target is still directly in front of you. Those mountains are directly in front of you all the way down to their base. What is novel about my approach to explaining these phenomena is to suggest strongly that the image of the mirage is along the x-axis. The lower arrow represents the physical distance to the base of the mountain along the x-axis, which is covered in our observation by a mirage. Again, the ground behind or below the mirage is along the x-axis, and so the mirage is not vertical. The only vertical aspect of these images is the erect physical target. At the point at which the fold line can be determined, that is where the image ceases to be vertical and then becomes horizontal along the egocentric point of view of the viewer. The point at which Adam will turn around is 1 mile from me. Therefore, at this angle, the mirage is obscuring 3/4 of a mile. that reality must be accounted for when looking farther into the distance as the degree of the angle becomes more acute. What this means is there is an absolute law of physics which accounts for the height and depth of distant objects being hidden by what might be considered by some naysayers an impossible viewing degree of angle. I'm looking at you, Rumpus and Ruhif. This truck is 100% physically in view, being obscured only by the phenomenon. In other words, the hull of the truck is shrouded in mirage, and yet the tires are right there. The water is right there. The road is right there. Everything is right there. In your line of sight. If this truck were farther away, nothing but the angular size would change. In other words, that truck is still 100% in front of you on the road that you can't see. Each of these boats are horizontal to one another at different distances in the phenomenon. This truck, oil platform in the Channel Islands is now 12 times farther away than Adam's truck at Bonneville. This is an inferior mirage, and the viewing angle is too acute to present the entire mirrored platform. We only get the very base of the platform mirrored, but the entire truck is right here. My argument about mirages from the beginning has been this: what we observe in the distance, whether proximate or remote, whatever is happening at, say, a mile, is also happening at any and every distance beyond that. The physics for both are uniform and are the effect of the conditions of the medium affectionately known as the AEtherband. Everybody drink. Now, if you take the time to just go back a little bit before, the platforms are the same platform, and yet the degree of the mirage has changed. Now, normally when I shoot these, I'm at full optical zoom, so even the magnification has changed from the first one to this. Hey, where'd that bird go? But these images are not 100% physical, even though the physical erect image is 100% in your line of sight. Nothing of these trucks, oil platforms or boats or lighthouses or islands, nothing is missing. Okay, please listen very carefully. The sky can be seen below the mirage of this boat, which means the sky is miraged, which means the truck, this boat, is 100% physically in front of you. One of the profound realizations that I came to is that this ship is moving through the phenomenon. It's moving through the event. Okay, so you can't see any mirage to the left of the image right now, but it's moving through the medium, which is creating the mirage and presenting to you what appears to be a ship hull down. But the sky to the left and the right and beneath this mirage, beneath the fold line, beneath the vanishing line, that's mirage. That sky above the water, that's not the sky. That's the mirage of the sky. And you can't see the fold line because the color tone blends in so well. Okay, you've got to think back to the earlier comment on the road sign. The road sign is standing on physical ground. But at some point when the vanishing line appears, you cannot see the ground upon which the road sign is standing. So it doesn't matter what the distance is to the road sign. If there's an inferior mirage, that road sign is on the ground, which is directly in front of you. wipe away the phenomenon, you would see the ground extending into the distance, and then you would see the road sign. Okay, so what we have here in this image of the Channel Islands is the road sign, is the island. The island is touching the water physically in the distance, but you can't see it. Why can't you see it? There's a mirage. You see the sky mirrored beneath the island. The default interpretation, in my opinion, by all of the standard mirage enthusiasts and aficionados, is that if you are seeing the sky, then that is the reality. So they are then placing this flying island up above the water, which screws with physics. Okay, this has got to be making sense to someone out there. So this is the line of sight for the mouth of the Chesapeake coming up into Havre de Grace. That distant land is 12 miles away. The land to the right of the image is 6 miles away. So I'm going to put the barge at about 5 miles away. And this barge is 100% fully visible. There's nothing missing. Nothing missing. That barge is on the water. You see it right there. Now, there's high activity in this image because this is the condition for looming. I don't have another term for this right now. What looming does in the real world is it extends the distance. It drops the distance into the background, which then makes everything smaller and at times lifts the apparent position of the targets higher if you have a control image. Okay, this stuff's in my channel. I mean, come on. All right, the barge is right there in front of you. The barge is dark gray. Beneath that is water. That is water all the way up to the barge. That's number one. That number one is the aquaband. It's very acute. Beneath that aquaband is the barge miraged. You can see the sky between the aquabands. And look how severe and acute that mirage is. Now, this is an interesting dynamic here because you've got the mirage between two presentations of aquabands. It's very interesting. I've got it on video though, so you can watch it and be sorely amazed just like I was. Anyway, the aquabands are depths of water along the horizontal viewing point from the egocentric viewer. Okay? I love this stuff, so I'm just geeking out. This is longer than I wanted it to be, but it is what it is. Love me, just love me. Love me. Hull down is an expression used by William Carpenter in his book 100 Proofs That the Earth is Not a Globe. Hull down is an expression used to describe a boat whose hull is below and behind the horizon as a result of Earth curve. So, you tell me, is this ship hull down?